Where's your head with this? I know you've been quite scathing regards Brendan in that.
Yeah, well, I think he deserves it.
I don't let up in this. He played a major part in Leicester's
because I think they get away
demise.
with it. I think they get away with it. I think he should get all the plaudits for winning an FA Cup. I think he should get all the plaudits for the achievements that he's done with Celtic and the trophies that he won there. And I think they should have the flip side of it when they don't do something particularly well. I think Leicester's sitting in the Championship because Brendan Rodgers didn't fancy managing them when it got difficult. Yeah, fine. He should have got better players. He should have been able to get a bit more recruitment, and maybe he should have been able to change it up, or maybe you should have just done a little bit more, and you've gotten away with it. Now, going to Celtic, will he do a job? Of course he'll do a job. Of course he'll do a job, because he's good enough to do a job at Celtic. And unless, of course, that he's allowed himself to drift in such a situation where he can't get himself out of second gear. I shouldn't imagine so. It's an interesting climb down, sideways move, or backward step, whichever way you want to look at it. Celtic, huge football club. No doubt about it.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't go to Scotland, so he could end up back in Scotland.
It's perfect, though, isn't it, for Celtic?
See, that's the point. Just before we leave that, Simon, your final point there. Well, he didn't go to Scotland to end back up in Scotland.
Yeah, he went to Scotland to rebuild after Liverpool and to give himself an opportunity to come back to the Premier League. And he's come back from the Premier League. You know, he's a recidivist. He's sliding backwards into the Scottish leagues because, again, he needs to rebuild.
So is it cruel to think, Martin, that he might have used
So
Celtic
you're suggesting
somewhat
as
as
a
a
stepping
stepping
stone.
stone,
Well, I think
and then might use it as again?
Yeah, I don't think Celtic will mind too much if he can win, 2 back-to-back trebles as he did the first time round, 7 trophies that he won. I think it's perfect for Celtic to get him back in there, the quality that he has. I think from Brendan's point of view, nobody would have expected this story to have turned out this way, to end up back at Celtic. But from Celtic, I think it's a fantastic appointment for them.
I hope Rangers are at it, right? Because it's one thing going and smashing the league when you haven't got much competition. I hope Rangers are back at it. Then we can see how good he is. Then we can see, because if he slides back into Scotland and Rangers aren't much opposition, it's all going to look great. When really and truly it isn't. The job that and I like Brendan. I really like him as a bloke. And for years I've always been a major advocate for him. I was talking about him in conjunction when we talked about, well, okay, then who would you put in England manager's job? And I said, Brendan Rodgers is a consideration.
Do you think he's right to take this job? Do you think he should have waited or tried to rebuild his career in a different way?
But what's right for Brendan Rodgers, only he can define. We can all pontificate on it. But
is it safe, though? Is this a comfort? Is this to suggest maybe...
Well, it looks that way.
Yes.
It does look that way.
Maybe he's hurting after the Leicester situation. I mean, that would have hurt his ego massively, surely. I mean, he never felt that there's lots of clubs were chasing Brendan Rodgers. All of a sudden, now he was sacked.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be this time, Martin. Okay, Brendan, come back. Sure. All right. We want you. Yeah. And he is a top coach, as you rightly say. This time, what can you do for us in Europe?
Yeah, but it'd be unfair for Brendan.
What can you do in Europe?
He's got to, wholeheartedly, he's going to be giving everything, surely, for Celtic, isn't he? Because this is a huge club. The Champions League Champions League was
No, but this time, can you win a European trophy? While you're back here, can you do it?
I don't know if they can.
Well,
I don't see them win the Champions League.
No, of course not.
But this is not going to happen. They just need to get out of the group. It's stage by stage.
They can drop into the Europa League, can't they?
Yeah.
And we've seen Scottish teams progress, and we've seen English teams progress.
Yeah.
And if you get the right draws in the Europa League, you find yourself in a Europa League final.
That's right.
The last Champions League was an embarrassment, wasn't it? This year, 2 points.
But that's my point. This time,
not as embarrassing as Rangers.
This time, yeah, that's right. This time, what can you do in Europe?
Yeah,
it's got to be.
That's what he'd be looking to do, but obviously he needs to look after the domestic title.
Do you think that's what it is? Do you genuinely think that that's what's being said to him? Or do you look at it and go, geez, we've got a great big hole just punched in our midriff by the departure of Ange Postecoglou. Let's have a look around and see which makes sense.
Yeah, but it's a gift, isn't it? He's managing in the Champions League. So you look at some of the incentives for going, it's got to be one of them was high on that list.
Yes,
but
and that's
if all that falls away,
that's a good point.
If all that falls away, it's like, well, okay, it maybe looks it's a bit hollow because no matter how many more times he wins the Scottish Premier League, we're still going to say, well, look, you've got to go do that in England first.
Yeah, and he's not going to get the same dough, I shouldn't think, as he gets in the English Premier League managing in Scotland. Do you think? I don't think he will he?
No.
Well, he's about to earn more than any Celtic manager has ever earned.
Do we know the salary of it?
We don't know precisely, but it is thought
it's significant. But is it significant in comparison with Premier League salaries?
One thing for sure, the budget he's going to work with is significantly lower than what he'd been working with.
But he knows that.
Sure, but then so is the quality of opposition they're playing on a weekly basis. And we had this argument made about what happened last season, and they did all right, Celtic. They look at the game they put up against Real Madrid. Yeah, but they were playing against a few other sides in that competition, in that league, that were Shakhtar Donetsk and other sides, and I can't remember the other one, but they weren't huge budgets. There wasn't a massive disparity between the 60 or 70 million quid a year that Celtic bring in.
Yeah.
Finding out exactly what Celtic's wage bill is, is like getting a coherent answer from you sometimes, Martin. I can't actually find it.
Oh, really?
I'm not standing for that, man.
No.
Even with a sore throat, he's still
it's
dishing it
interesting.
out.
It's interesting because maybe 2-3 years, Brendan again. Do we see him back again in the Premier League? Do we see him on this journey once more?
Well, that's the point.
And where do we see him?
He's only, what is he, 50 odd, if that?
I mean, is this it? Is this it?
Is he?
No,
young?
I think there's other
of
things.
course it's
I think
not.
he's hugely ambitious. I do think he's an excellent coach as well, unlike Simon. I do.
No, I think
he's
he's a good
top manager.
coach.
I
No,
think
I'll
he
be
just.
interested to hear
I
from
think
him when
he
he-
lost
when he
his
does do
way
it.
and he stopped loving his players at Leicester, and he wasn't supported in the way that he wanted. He went for it, didn't he? When they went out of the FA
Stop
Cup,
loving them.
he accused the players of not being good enough. Basically, one or two.
I just got this image of Brendan Rodgers walking up to his players and going, "Hello, I love you."